Bill Carroll, Zenny62 Media, and I am doing what I do. I am working my way through that 2024-2025 watch list for the season. Of course, the draft to follow, particularly looking at players that I think are undervalued or underrated. And I'm going to start with Saiku White, who is a true student athlete, had a tremendous high school career, was involved in National Honor Society, Beta Club, uh, can speak Chinese, took 5 years of Chinese in his life, involved also in, was a two-sport athlete, played basketball, also volunteered as an assistant AAU basketball coach himself. Had a great high school career at Greater Atlanta Christian School, makes his way now as a Leopard at Lafayette, and came onto my radar in 2022. In that season, as a sophomore, he started 11 games, so hit the ground as a sophomore and was one of the best players on a very good defense. Was second on the team in tackles, had 84 stops, 100, one and a half tackles for loss, four pass breakups, had an interception, forced a fumble, and had a fumble recovery. Showed up week in and week out. Was terrific, particularly against Sacred Heart on the 3rd, which was September 3rd, the opening game. Held part of holding that team, Sacred Heart, to just 45 yards rushing. He also had an interception against Penn, had 10 unassisted tackles against Lehigh in their big game. One of the really biggest and oldest rivalries in college football that doesn't get talked about enough is the Lafayette-Lehigh rivalry. And then next year, or the next year after that, last year, for those who hadn't been paying attention, he allowed him to reintroduce himself. Was a third-team All-American for the Associated Press, was All-Conference, first team, preseason All-Patriot team as well. And what didn't he do? Started 12 games at free safety, was second on the team in tackles, once again, 77 stops, 5.5 tackles for loss. Had at least 3 tackles in every game all season, had 5 or more tackles in 9 out of 12 games. That's 75% for those of you that were, like me, English majors, not math majors. Also carried a 3.75 GPA that year. Truly astounding. He had a 42-yard interception return, had a couple of picks against Sacred Heart. Something about Sacred Heart, they should just avoid that guy. But had 2 picks against them, including a pick 6. Also, no, sorry, that was against Georgetown. He had the pick 6. But showed up in every game. If you just put on a game, pick any game, he showed up in every game and made at least one play that made you say, "Look, this guy's a player." He has good size, sort of a poor man's McCourty. Pick one, but he's about 6 feet, about 209 pounds. He's probably gonna run in the high 4.5s. Anything less than 4.55 is a big win. I think the over/under on him is 4.63. The 4.63 is the high, and the low is about 4.54. I'm guessing he's probably in that 4.58-ish range, but anything faster than 4.54, he's going to make it hard for people not to draft him because he's super football smart and just smart. If he tests well, along with being productive and smart, somebody should take a shot. And then a player that I am very, very confident will be drafted is Hunter Zambrano. Got a chance to see him in person a couple of times. He's an NFL prospect. I mean, I guess it's not too putting too fine a point on it. He has enough size. He's probably going to come in at maybe just a shade under 6'5", maybe 6'4 3/4, 6'4 7/8. He's probably right on the nose at right around 300, maybe a pound or two below. He looks almost, maybe not slender, but like he's very well put together. You would look at him and think 275, 280. And that's what you want, right? You want a guy who's about 300 who looks like he could be, less than 280. So he looks almost more like a 5 technique than an offensive tackle. He played left tackle and played at a high level. He first began starting at the position in 2022, was in 8 games and started 7 at left tackle, and still was graded out really high. Then last year, for those that hadn't noticed, he just announced himself thoroughly. Started all 11 games at left tackle, was the best offensive line. The team had a 90% film grade from his offensive line coach. He allowed the fewest sacks, or his offensive line he was on allowed the fewest sacks in the conference, just 7 on the entire year, which was a top 5 in all of the FCS. Their rushing attack was pretty good, also third in the league at 197.5 yards per game, and they had 345 yards against Murray State. So things you like about him: he identifies things quickly. He sees games and stunts and twists and diagnoses them well. He marries his hands and feet up fairly well. I'd still like to see him get a little stronger, particularly in the lower body, but he's got most of the things you look for. If it turns out he's a little shorter than advertised, which sometimes happens, could he play guard? Sure. He'd probably need to put on 15, 20 pounds to do it. I think he could end up still hanging out at that 311 to 306 range because of his frame. He could probably put on maybe a little more weight, but the thing he does best is his movement skills. He has really good movement skills, and though he can carry more weight, I don't think he necessarily needs to. Could he put on, once again, 8 to 12 pounds of lower body? Sure, particularly in that sort of thigh, glute drivetrain area. I wouldn't mind that at all. But he's a legit NFL prospect. I think unless he tests terribly, like well below average, I think he's going to be drafted. Might be very late, as a shot even to maybe be the classic Mr. Irrelevant kind of pick. But if he tests well, he pushes his way out of the 7th, into the 6th, maybe the late 5th. These are the two players I just talked about. So, once again, Illinois State's Hunter Zambrano is a player I feel very confident will end up being drafted. And while Saiku White is less sure to be drafted just because he's not in as prominent a conference, and he's a true student athlete. He's a guy that has a bright future if he never plays a down of football after he graduates from Lafayette. I would love to see him at least get a chance. Once again, shout out to both the Senior Bowl, probably in the case of Mr. Zambrano, and the Shrine Game, probably in the case of Mr. Saiku White. Bill Carroll, once again, is NE60 Media, working his way through that watch list, and I'll have 2 more players for you again tomorrow. See you then.